When a woman rests and slows down, she often feels like she's betraying her potential. In that moment when she chooses stillness, the world has trained her to hear a ticking clock. You could be networking, you could be building something, you could be proving yourself. Rest in this narrative is not nourishment, it's negligence. It's the quiet accusation that she's falling behind. But when a woman works hard, she also feels like she's betraying her people. Her ambition is never hers alone. It's weighed against what it costs others. If she stays late in the office, the question hangs, well, who's tucking in the children? Who is holding the household together? If she rises quickly, she risks being branded selfish, too ambitious, hungry for power. All she cares about is success. And then work in this narrative, it's not expansion, it's abandonment. And this is the paradox women are handed. Rest feels like wasted potential, but work can sometimes feel like stolen time. And either way, guilt becomes the tax on existence. And so women learn to live in the in-between, constantly apologizing, constantly negotiating, never quite free to claim either rest or ambition as their own. If this speaks to you, then welcome to this episode. Welcome to the She Leads podcast, a space that empowers women like you to build success in a way that feels authentic, energizing, and aligned with who you really are. In a world that tries to convince us that success means hustling harder and following everyone else's rules, we're here to rewrite the script. This is about success that feels nourishing, not depleting. Success that brings the fulfillment, impact, and recognition you deserve, whilst ultimately giving you the financial power to create the future you want and inspire meaningful change in the world around you. Make sure to hit the follow button so that you never miss an episode, and come and say hello on Instagram. You can find us at she_leads.academy. Let's dive in. Hello ladies, and welcome to a brand new episode of the She Leads show. So let's dive then into this rest and work paradox. And I think why do we feel so guilty whether we are resting, we feel guilty, or when we're working hard, we also feel guilty, and how that guilt actually keeps us from thriving. And this really is this double bind that so many women live inside. You know, ambition is telling us, do more, produce more, create more, but then our sense of duty whispers, give more. And whichever voice we obey, guilt is often this echo that follows. So how did we build this culture where both ambition and stillness can really sometimes feel like a crime? Women are often told, you've got to give your all at work, but you've also got to give your all at home. You've got to be really strong, but never too strong. You've got to do everything without ever dropping the ball. And the truth is, this guilt is really not natural. It's manufactured guilt. It's the residue of centuries of conditioning that taught women their bodies, their time, their very energy exists in service to someone else. So if we think back through history, rest was permissible only if it made us better caregivers. Ambition has only been tolerated if it didn't disturb the hierarchy, or maybe even the patriarchy. And so women have learned to interpret both rest and work through this lens of suspicion, as if either choice is going to make us guilty of taking up too much. But here's my question. What if rest and work, what if they're never actually meant to be in opposition? What if both are actually essential ingredients for thriving? And the real betrayal is the belief that women must apologize for either. We've got to apologize if we're working too hard, and we also have to apologize if we're resting too much. Now, we're often told to find balance. We hear this thrown around all the time, work-rest balance, work-life balance, as if life is this kind of tightrope walk where we just take one wrong move and we're going to fall off the tightrope. But balance actually suggests fragility. It's like these two opposing forces that must be kept in check, constantly managed, always, this threaten that we're going to topple over. So no wonder trying to find balance feels exhausting. This word, work-life balance. Often when I think of this, the image comes to mind is this set of scales, one side piling up with my demands from my work or my career, and the other with all of the family or personal needs, social needs. And then this woman, frantically adding and subtracting, trying to not let either side crash. And the problem is life doesn't sit neatly on a scale. Work deadlines, they're not going to politely pause when a child gets sick. Real life is not going to wait for you whilst you rebalance. So if we think of this tightrope metaphor then, balance implies that we are high above the ground, we're wobbling, our arms are stretched wide, and every gust of wind is threatening to throw us off. And I feel like that's what so many women feel like, one misstep away from being called a neglectful mother, an uncommitted worker, a selfish partner. And that is not balance. It's survival mode dressed up as virtue. And this constant tightrope act, I think, is why women feel perpetually tired, not just in their bodies, but in their minds, because every choice becomes a calculation. If I rest tonight, will I fall behind tomorrow? If I say yes to this project, will I be failing someone else at home? And that's not thriving. That's bracing against collapse. True thriving requires a different model, one where rest and drive, they're not opponents fighting for limited space, but integrated things that are actually able to sustain one another. So what if we shifted this frame then, where we recognize that thriving isn't about balance at all, it's actually about integration, rest and drive. We can't see these things as enemies locked in battle. They are partners in the same rhythm. So let's kind of think of, let's say, breathing for an example. We inhale and exhale. Those things are opposites, but we can't survive without both of those things. We need both of those things. We need to remember that rest isn't wasted time. It's actually what makes deep work possible. So if we have a well-rested mind, we can be more creative. We are able to imagine better solutions. We can sustain focus in a way that exhaustion never could. And if we think of drive, ambition, it's not greed or selfishness. It's how we step into our potential. It's how we test our edges. It's how we use our talents and bring ideas to life. Without ambition, rest collapses into stagnation. And maybe you've been in that place of stagnation. It's depressing. We feel disconnected from ourselves and our purpose. But then without that rest, ambition burns itself out. Now, I don't think the goal is to keep these forces, rest and work, delicately balanced. This isn't about this balancing act. Instead, it's about bringing these things together into a life where each one of these things fuels the other. Our rest fuels our work and our work fuels our rest. And the more we normalize this, the less guilt we will going to feel when we do pause. And the more powerful we will be able to show up in our work when it is time to push forwards. Now, when I think about this guilt and where it actually comes from, historically, women's rest was never truly our own. If we stopped moving, it wasn't because we needed to replenish ourselves. It was to recover just enough to return to service. And I think this plays out as well for the modern women. We don't fully allow ourselves to rest and recharge. We may rest, but it's just in small enough doses that we get enough energy back to go back to being of service to others, caring for our children, tending for our households, supporting husbands. Historically, rest was framed as functional, not as sovereign. And even today, I think this culture, again, of self-care often reinforces this idea. So, if we think of the idea of going and taking a spa day, this isn't an act of claiming our autonomy. It's a way to recharge so you can get back out there and keep giving to your work, keep giving to your loved ones. So, in other words, rest, yes, it is permitted, but only if it makes you more useful. And then we also look at the other side of the script, our work, ambition. This carries its own trap. Female drive has historically been tolerated only within boundaries that don't disrupt the social order. So a hard-working woman, yes, she's celebrated, but she will also be carefully scrutinized. And she's told not to get too ambitious, not to act colder than a man, not to let her children or her relationships suffer for her career. Whereas men are often praised for this single-minded focus. Women are the ones that are judged for it. Their ambition must always be softened, made more palatable, balanced with warmth and humility. And the result of this sort of contradiction then is that rest feels selfish, like we're hoarding energy that should be spent on others. Work feels exploitative, like we're draining the well too quickly. And either way, the mind and our body aren't fully owned by the woman herself. They're measured against who else they are meant to serve. And so guilt becomes this constant companion, shadowing both stillness and striving. Now, from my own personal experience, allowing myself to truly rest, truly switch off, and not just I'm going to switch off a little bit to recharge my battery so I can get back out there and serve my business and serve my family. I mean, truly rest. When I think about this, I think my battle with this lies in the fact that rest often feels like a betrayal. So when we think about rest, it's often framed as this privilege rather than our birthright. So we hear messages a lot where, oh, you've earned this spa day. Treat yourself. As if stopping to breathe, nap, enjoy quiet is some kind of indulgence, not a fundamental human need. Rest is permitted only after everything else is done. And I feel this in myself. I'm like, once I get all of this done, then I'm going to allow myself, a few days off to recharge. Yeah, I think for women, everything else, it's never done. There's always another task. There's always another request, another role to fulfill. And because of this, many women internalize the idea that pausing is dangerous. To stop feels like we are slipping behind. At work, where ambition demands constant output, and at home, where often the caregiving and emotional labor, they never take a break. So a mother, for example, who takes an afternoon nap maybe feels guilty about not folding laundry, or a professional who maybe shuts her laptop on time feels guilty for not answering just one more email. And I even find this narrative play out within my relationships as well. So I often feel guilty if I've not called, let's say, my mum back, because at the time I just need that rest and solitude. But I feel guilty, so I end up thinking, I must call her. This rest is universal. If I stop, I am letting somebody else down. And then there's also this invisible labor trap. And studies have shown this, that even when men and women log equal hours in paid work, women actually shoulder more unpaid labor. So these are things like housework, caregiving, scheduling, remembering birthdays, doing the grocery shop. These tasks are often unseen, yet they devour rest time. So a man might clock out and he may actually get to rest, but a woman often clocks out of her job only to then clock in at home. So when she does rest, she feels the weight of all the invisible tasks left undone. Now, this might not happen in every household. I feel like in my own household, there's a very good balance between our home responsibilities, childcare, and things that are happening in the home. But I know for a lot of women, this is the story, these invisible tasks that prevent her from getting the rest she needs. And this is why rest, instead of feeling restorative, often feels like betrayal. Betrayal of potential, but also betrayal of our loved ones, of expectations that were maybe never ours to carry in the first place. But then on the flip side of rest feeling like betrayal, I started thinking, well, actually, work can sometimes feel like a betrayal too. Again, because we are conditioned to believe that ambition comes with this social cost. If we pursue it too fully, somebody else is going to suffer. I remember hearing this narrative when I worked in corporate, where it was women that were very much at the top of the game, but they were almost met with suspicion. Oh, look how far she's come, but at what cost? Any of the women that were, leaders within their fields, that were at the top of their game, there was always this kind of underlying question, what has she had to sacrifice in order to get there? She's staying late at night. Who is putting the kids to bed? She probably never sees her kids. Is that really a life? There always seems to be this subtle suggestion that if a woman is successful and ambitious, that success must be costing somebody else something, whether that's her husband, her kids. And I think this is why so many women's success stories are told with this, cautionary undertale. She had it all, but what did it cost her kids? And this paradox, I think, is very cruel because women are being asked to shatter glass ceilings, but when we do, we're expected to pick up all the shards, sweep away all the shards. We've got to prove ourselves professionally, but still carry the bulk of domestic and emotional labor. And we're only celebrated for ambition as long as it doesn't disrupt the roles that others are still expecting us to play. So even in moments where we feel like we're winning, many women still feel this pang of guilt. The achievement isn't allowed to just stand on its own. We can't just celebrate our successes, because our success is often shadowed by the question of what, or more often who, was left behind. Who were we not looking after? So for most women then, this rest, it often feels stolen, work feels suspect. But what if neither had to come with any kind of guilt? What if thriving is not about choosing one side of the equation, but embracing both fully and apologetically? Remember, rest and work are not the enemies. And I think what's useful here is to actually reframe how we are viewing rest. So sometimes we think of this rest as we're collapsing from giving too much, as extending ourselves so much. I don't think rest is the collapse that comes after you've driven yourself to the edge. True rest is choosing stillness before you break and trusting that it makes you stronger. And I think this is where we often get it so wrong, because we wait until we are completely burned out and exhausted before we give ourselves that option to rest. So let's say, for example, there's a woman and she's in a career or maybe in a business, and she chooses to close her laptop or leave the office at 5 on the dot. Now, she's got unfinished emails. There's things still on her to-do list, but she knows that resting now means brilliance tomorrow. So when she walks in the next morning, or she opens her laptop the next morning, her solution to the unsolvable problem that maybe she had the day before is all of a sudden crystal clear, because she gave her mind room to breathe. And in this context, we see that rest is not weakness. Rest is not a collapse. It's strategy. Rest is powerful. And then work too. I think work also needs reframing. Rather than as this sense of obligation, I've got to go and do this, I've got to go to work. Seeing our work as expansion. And I think women were often told that our ambition, our drive, it's got to be almost apologized for. But going back to this concept that work is expansion, what I mean by this is that it's how women claim space in the world, especially in a world that has maybe always asked us to shrink. So thinking of the woman, let's say she starts her own business, not just to make money, but to also create an impact in the world, create an impact in people in her community. Her work ripples outwards. It shapes other people's lives. Or let's take, for example, maybe a single mom who takes a promotion. Everyone told her would be too much, but she takes it anyway, and she walks into that bigger office, shoulders squared, knowing that she's modeling something her daughter will never forget. Ambition without apology. And for these women, their work is not about obligation. This is something you have to do. It's about rewriting the story of what women are actually allowed to want. And I think that's the key thing. What are we actually allowed to want? Because I think there's pressure on women to do the work, to be successful, but we also have to justify it. So, a woman who works long hours is asked to, who's covering dinner? A woman who builds a business is expected to explain it's for her kids' future or it's for the community. Rarely just because she wanted to build something great. Women often feel like they need this noble reason to chase ambition. And I don't think men have this same level of expectation. I think men are free to just simply want more. But when a woman works from desire instead of duty, just because, she's excited by her work, she's excited by the challenge, she wants financial freedom, she loves what she does. What she does then is she starts to rewrite the script. She makes space for a different narrative where women are allowed to want without having to earn that want through sacrifice or apology. And I think that shift really matters. And I think this is why I'm so passionate about helping women really step into their purpose, whether it's through coaching or doing something else. Because what we're doing here is we're showing that ambition, it's not a betrayal of others. It's actually a declaration of ourself. Balance is asking us to constantly perform for others. We've got to balance our work commitments with our family commitments. It's all about something outside of us. But integration is about weaving together both rest and drive, to claim our energy as ours, to give without depletion and to create without apology. And when a woman rests without guilt, she teaches herself that her worth isn't tied to endless output. And when she works without apology, she shows that her ambition doesn't need permission. And then when she does both, when she claims both rest and her work fully and unapologetically, she's no longer betraying her potential or her people. She's building a life that belongs wholly to her. Now, ladies, if you feel like this sounds familiar to you, if you're resonating with this and you're wanting to dive deeper, then I'd love to invite you to my upcoming workshop. So here we're going to take this topic and we're going to explore it in more depth, but we're also going to get practical as well. So we're going to look at how to recognize the guilt scripts that you've inherited and really start dismantling them, and how to integrate rest and work in a way that actually feels sustainable instead of swinging between burnout and collapse. And then also how to actually practice ambition without apology and also rest without shame. Now, this can be for yourself, but if you are a coach or mentor or leader, we'll also explore how to guide others through this as well. So you may choose to use this workshop for your own personal growth, but it may be a way for you to serve those you help in a bigger way. So you'll learn how to spot when clients are stuck in that tightrope mindset, where they feel like, any wrong step and they're going to tumble down, and actually how to give them the tools to step off the tightrope completely so that they can thrive in both their stillness and in their striving. So if that is something you feel resonates with you, then you can go to she-leads.co/workshop. That's she-leads.co/workshop. I will also link that in the show notes. All of the information for that upcoming workshop can be found on that page. Thank you so much, ladies, for tuning in, and I will catch you on the next episode. If today's episode lit something up in you and you are ready to build a coaching business that not only changes lives but creates the income and freedom you deserve, then right now you can request a free trial of our She Leads Academy coach training. To get your free trial, just head over to Instagram and visit us at she_leads.academy. You will find the link to the free trial in our bio. I cannot wait to see what's possible for you.